you know what, with Jim Harbaugh, what's the next step with him? And here's a guy that, hey, if he wins a third title in a row, say he gets to the playoff again, you have to think that maybe there's a pro team out there, no matter how he's been blackballed by San Francisco or how, you know, how, I'm not going to say weird because I don't think that's fair to him, how different he is, you know, in interviews or whatever, that's going to look at him and say, hey, man, maybe this is our guy. So your thoughts on his future? And because it certainly seems to me that he's pretty invested right now, especially with the way he's pursuing NIL and everything on the road.
Well, there's two things that come to mind here. First and foremost, I personally don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to get an NFL job until the Michigan passing offense develops into a translatable NFL passing offense.
Interesting.
And last year being ranked 79th in the nation going into the TCU game is not good enough to translate and convince an NFL general manager or an owner that I can design a passing game that's going to be effective enough. As much as we all love the power football and the effectiveness that it has had for Michigan in the last couple of years, just running people over, we saw in the TCU game what happens when that gets taken away from you, and suddenly you need a dynamic passing game to win a football game. And we struggled there a little bit against TCU to do that. It was kind of not our game. Well, it needs to be our game for Jim to be that NFL serious candidate again. The other thing that comes to mind is I don't really wonder anymore. I don't really have too much of a concern with Jim Harbaugh leaving to go be an NFL coach. He's being paid as much as an NFL coach with his incentives and everything else, and he's so it's not a salary thing. The rules regarding roster management and free agency and how you build a roster in the NFL are very clear and they're very defined, and you cannot break them. In college football, there are no rules basically right now, Ballas. You could get players off of the what's the wire in the NFL. It's the transfer portal. And so you have basically the entire world of college football at your disposal to possibly pick up players. You can't do that in the NFL. So as a guy like Jim Harbaugh really want to step into the world of being restricted in his ability to get kids to transfer to his program like he can at Michigan right now? Because in the NFL, it's, you know, contracts and free agency periods and salary caps and everything else. None of that exists in the NCAA right now, and it's not going to anytime soon. So I'm not so sure he's as eager, with one exception. He's not as eager to go jump to the NFL to chase as he is maybe a few years ago before this whole NIL transfer thing blew up. There's only one thing, and it's the Lombardi Trophy. That's the only thing. Is he's a competitor, and he wants to win the biggest trophies there are. And so, you know, months from now, if you told me that Michigan went into the playoff with a highly explosive passing offense to complement a dominant running game, and he wins the national championship and gets that trophy, then the chances of him pursuing an NFL job go way up because he's going to want the next thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And one thing I will say is that, you know what, John Bacon said on Paul Feinbaum's show the other day, I just wrote a column about it, just put it up, where he said, you know, Jim Harbaugh is kind of taking it NIL by the reins, and he's kind of had to do it himself, not getting the support that he needs from the AD. So he's going on in his spare time, and he's going out to California. He's going to New York a couple times. I think he actually missed that one, but meeting with donors to try to raise the money to get, you know, up to speed with the NIL program, where it's not where it's supposed to be and not where it should be. So I thought that was interesting, and but I give him credit for doing it. And you wonder, and I want to talk to you about NIL here too, you wonder how many other Michigan coaches are going to have to do this if this is the Michigan approach. They just finished 11th in the Directors' Cup, which is the lowest that they've been since 2015. You look at the basketball program, the softball program, the baseball program had all reached incredible highs. They are now waning. So, you know what, to me, that's a lot on his shoulders. It's not just about building the roster through recruiting, but you have to be on a level playing field. And he's kind of putting that on his shoulders here, where he's got to take the reins there, Skeen, and be the front man for that.
Yeah, that's part of the collateral issues here of the era of NIL. You've got some schools that immediately circled the wagons and had millions of dollars at their disposal to go buy players. Think of Texas A&M, a year or two ago, Ballas, when when they bought that freshman roster. Now it didn't turn into anything for them. At least so far it hasn't, and the pressure is super high on Coach Fisher down there at Texas A&M to produce, or he's going to be gone in short order. And that goes for any other coach who's got $1 million rosters on the sideline but can't win big games. Jim Harbaugh has kind of done the opposite. Michigan did not have the wagon circled with millions of dollars at their disposal to go buy players, and yet here we are winning at the highest of levels. So it's a bit unexpected. The process of college football and major college sports being shattered and redefined by who's paying the right amount of money to get players, this doesn't surprise me at all, and it's only going to continue. I think Harbaugh is having success in spite of what kind of probably should have happened. So, winning games against your rivals and big moments maybe makes some kids go, hey, maybe I can't get, $60 million for signing the letter with Michigan, but if I go there and I produce, I'm going to get the money anyway. And I think that's the story that Jim Harbaugh is telling, that you come here, you have success, we will develop you as a football player and as a young man. Hopefully you'll graduate along the way too. I saw Rashawn Gary just came back and graduated from Michigan. That's really cool. That means something to these young men. So that comes from the coaching staff that Harbaugh has in place and himself. And so these are all good indicators to overcome the fact that we don't have, some massive pool of money sitting on the side of State Street down there to go buy players. Can the next head coach do it? It's a difficult one to answer. It's some magical formula that Harbaugh has put together. So I think when that time comes, it'll have to be an interesting and very, very specific choice of someone who knows how to manage this. Because I don't think Michigan's ever going to be Texas A&M or LSU or any of these schools down south that are just lining up the Brinks trucks to pay these players. We're never going to be that. And if that's what it takes to win, then I don't know that Michigan's going to want to play that game. We're going to be fair, and you're going to get what you earn here. And for some players in football and basketball and softball and others, that may not be enough. So they're going to They're going to transfer off and be part of the all-star team wherever it's happening. I'm thinking of Oklahoma softball right now. It's a lot of grief. They win the championship every year. Right now, it's like, do they even lose a game?
Right.
So the transfer portal is going to continue to have, I believe, an overall negative impact on college sports from a fan's perspective. If you're a superstar player, you can go get paid and change the course of your life financially. That's good for them individually. I'm a greedy former player, and I want to see my Michigan team do as good as possible. So hopefully this trend continues where we have success in spite of the lack of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and you look at the guys that they're getting from the transfer portal, and they are great fits. These guys are captains on their teams. These guys are not looking for the huge bag. They understand that they're going to get their opportunities. And I was going to ask you this, as a former player, Jim Harbaugh's transformational, not transactional approach. And I like it, frankly, and what they're doing is they're setting up opportunities for kids. There will be a time, hopefully in the near future, when these kids get a stipend, but they're going to have to earn it, right? And it's not going to be like, here's $1 million, come play for us, which I appreciate as a Michigan alum, and I think that you probably do too. Number two, the transfer portal, the way they're doing it, they're getting kids like Oluwatimi, Drake Nugent at center, who I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, guys that fit. A.J. Barner, a tight end, who's going to be a fantastic fit here. We saw him in the spring. He was a captain at Indiana. So to me, that is part of the formula.